Thanks, Deb. Yes, I'm in the WRTI Performance Studio with composer, oud player, violinist, music educator Simone Shaheen, who is a soloist with the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia in its upcoming season finale. That finale includes the Philadelphia premiere of Shaheen's Concerto in C minor for oud, as well as a solo interlude for oud. Welcome.
I'm happy to be here with you, Susan.
Now, the oud, you have your oud with you, and that's what you'll be playing today. It occupies, I understand, a central role in Arab culture.
Yeah, the oud is the traditional instrument that plays a big role in the in traditional Arab music as well as traditional Turkish music, Persian music, North Africa, all the Northeast also. So it is central because of the sound. It's used by composers when they compose. It's used by singers when they perform, like here, when singers play guitar and
Yes.
sing. It played a big role also in the traditional ensemble as the most authentic instrument that in
What do you mean?
Middle Eastern, meaning the oldest instrument, if you will.
Okay.
And then, so I started to play the oud in the most traditional fashion. You know, when I was little, 4 or 5 years old, my father was oud player, composer, educator, and he introduced me to the oud and the whole musical culture.
Well, and then you also studied violin in conservatory in Jerusalem, and then came to New York, where you've developed a style. You studied at Columbia and a Manhattan School of Music, and then has developed a style that combines traditional Arab music with jazz and other styles in a kind of fusion.
Correct. I started with playing, performing the traditional Arabic music. And when we say Arabic music, we have to be careful because this is a vast world. What I'm talking about is the eastern part of the Mediterranean basin. So this includes, let's say, from Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and Egypt aligns itself with this region actually more than Africa itself. So this is what I started to play, and then shortly in 1982 or three, I put together an ensemble of traditional musicians who came from the Middle East also, and performed or played in Chicago, Boston, New York, San Francisco, whatever. So I invited them to come to New York and promised them to make good money and start to perform this music at its best on stages rather than the cabaret and little clubs and so forth.
And this is the band Kantara?
This was the Near Eastern Music Ensemble.
Okay.
We were 5 musicians. It was composed of me playing on the oud and the violin. There was a qanun player, the zither, and nai player, the end-blown flute, a percussionist. Yeah, I think this was the band. And we had a singer. So, and we started to perform. I started to knock on the doors of the performing arts centers, universities, museums, schools. And, they were very receptive and started to reach out to the larger public.
Well, the first piece you're going to play today is called Alcantara.
Yeah, Alcantara is one of the pieces that I composed towards the ends of the 80s. I was visiting in Madrid, and I was doing a recording with some Spanish flamenco musicians. And the recording site was in a little village called Alcantara, which is north of Madrid. And living the sound of flamenco, which originated in Middle Eastern music, inspired me, and I wrote this piece also that brings the sound of Arabic music and the flamenco flair, if you will, on the guitar to the oud.
Well, we'd love to hear it. You're listening to WRTI from the WRTI Performance Studio, live. Simone Shaheen. beautiful. If you're just joining us, we're in the WRTI Performance Studio with Shaheen, who is playing live for us. He's playing the oud. Simone, maybe we should describe this beautiful instrument and talk a little bit about how it makes the sounds it does.
Yeah, the oud is the forerunner of the lute, the European lute, and it has the same shape. So it has the top, which we call the face, because it looks like a face, two eyes and
It does.
one big mouth, right? And then you have the fingerboard, the short fingerboard with no frets like on the guitar.
Yes.
And this allows me to play those microtones that you heard even in this performance. And it has, the half pair round shape in the back. Then it has 5 double strings and 1 single. So the reason for the double strings is just for projection. So each two are tuned identically. And I use the pick that is made of animal horn or eagle feather
Yes.
sometimes, and to strum the strings.
Wow. Now, you mentioned microtones. Microtones are tones that we don't ordinarily hear in music, Western music.
Correct.
So, for example, on a piano, you have white keys and black keys, and these
Correct.
microtones are somewhere in between.
Yeah, imagine like a red key between the white and the black. So when you press it,
Yes.
it gives you the intermediate sound between the white and the black. And this intermediate sound is part of the microtonal shades that are between white and black. Meaning that if you take two neighboring keys, white and black, there are several sounds in between them. Let's say, in Arabic music.
Yes.
Or Turkish or Persian or
And we're
many
just
other.
not used to hearing them. And
Not definitely, and this is what I use when I teach at. You take a part, and
Right.
part of a verse, and then you improvise. You elaborate on this verse.
right, it's sort of like jazz.
Jazz, very much,
Okay.
very much.
So you're about to play a piece. I have down here free improvisation, and you said you weren't sure what you were going to play. What are the factors that influence you?
Yeah, then if we know what we are going to play, then why to call it improvisation, right? And the whole idea is that it is something that you come up at the moment of performance. And there are factors, for example, the choice of the mode, the style of the improvisation, the length. Is it 3 minutes? It's 4. Is it 15 minutes? Is it half an hour? So improvisations could have different forms, different styles, different lengths.
Okay. Well, right now.
I'll play something. You tell me how
No.
many seconds you want it.
Have you made any of these decisions yet for this piece?
Yeah, no, I don't know. The
Oh.
minute I put the oud on my right lap,
Okay.
I will. Here, let us try.
Okay. That's great. If you're just joining us, we are in the WRTI Performance Studio with Simone Shaheen, who has just played an improvisation. That was really amazing, and you were clearly in a zone. I think I was getting into a zone too. When you start improvising like that, do you start with an idea and then just see where the music takes you? Or are you consciously making choices the whole time?
No, you just let it flow. Because the minute, you get into these choices with options, then it's limitations.
Because you start thinking it too much.
It's too much. You just flow with it. And of course, this reservoir of repertoire that you have in your brain and the knowledge of the culture, the style, of course, it all pours into the artistry of improvisation. The ability, the technical and the musical ability on the instrument, of course, it helps much. So there are many factors. But the most important thing is the flow of the ideas and the concepts in a way that is very interconnected and makes sense. And it's musical, it moves from black to white with lots of shades in between and very expressional, I would say.
Right. So it's something I guess, when you're learning, you just get better and better because your improvisation is informed by all that you know and have experienced. So when you went to New York, you mentioned you formed the Near Eastern Music Ensemble, and then since 1994, you've produced the Arab Festival of the Arts. What is the goal of that?
Yeah, it started in 1993.
Oh.
And I started the festival in partnership with the Brooklyn Museum in Brooklyn. And the idea was to have this festival for 2 or 3 days in which we introduce Arab arts from music to dance to theater to craftsmanships, children's programs. So many people came to see these programs. So, and it was an event that really had a mark on the artistic scene in New York. Even people started to come from all over the world to participate in this event. And it brought a great deal of awareness to what is considered Arab art.
Yes.
And of course, we had so many talents here that needed to be introduced. So we utilized lots of the talents who lives in the United States, but they didn't have any venues to perform. Also, we invited, every year, we invited 1 or 2 artists from the Middle East or North Africa, and who were very well known and established to participate. And definitely this created great deal, at the festival. It was a big deal. So the festival was done at the Brooklyn Museum, and then later years we started to use the Brooklyn Museum and Town Hall in New York. So the final concert was at Town Hall
Wow.
in the city.
So when was that?
Several times.
Okay.
We did 1996,
Right.
7, 8,
Yeah.
9. Big concert in 2004.
Right. Well, that's wonderful. And the next piece you're performing for us is by a Turkish composer.
Right. The composer is Necdet Yaşar. I see why you didn't want to say the name.
You said it so perfectly.
Correct. And Necdet Yaşar is a composer and tambour player. Tambour is a kind of long-necked lute or oud with a smaller body. And he's considered one of the most known and I would say traditional Turkish musician. He established many ensembles. He composed. He established also the program of traditional Turkish music on the radio, which kept the tradition alive. And he composed this samai. Samai is the name of the form, and the mode that is this piece is based on called Nava Athar. To those who know music, it's like the harmonic minor with sharp 4. This is the Berkeley style. And the Samai is based on a beat that is 10 beats per measure. So you count from 1 to 10 to finish one measure. Okay? And it has 4 parts, each part followed by a refrain, a repeated refrain. Only the last part changes meter and rhythm from 10 to 6.
So the rhythm is very important. The 10 beats, I saw a video that you were talking about 10 beats, but there's emphasis on 1, 6, and 7.
Correct. Yeah, that's true. And when you have those, elongated beats or rhythmic modes, we call them rhythmic modes or iqa, then you have to create the subdivision internally. Instead of counting from 1 to 10, you can count. The samai would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So this helps the swinging and the phrasing, if you will.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Are we ready for it?
Yes, we're ready. You're listening to WRTI live from the WRTI Performance Studio. Some Wonderful. If you're just joining us, we are in the WRTI Performance Studio with Shaheen, who has been playing the oud for us. And Simone, you are here in Philadelphia to perform with the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia a concerto that you wrote for oud and orchestra. What was it like to combine those traditions?
Yeah, the work was commissioned by the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. We performed it for the first time in 2009. So, as I said, the focus here was the oud, and the oud is traditional instrument. I did play oud with the string quartet. It works very well. I did the play in fusion context.
Yes.
It worked very well. But then to come to an orchestra and big sound, then there was, many careful thoughts has to be considered there. First of all, the oud is not piano nor a violin that has this projection in terms of sound. So I have to think about balancing this sound. Create a nice balance between the oud and the orchestra. The second thing, the use of the maqam system or the modal system that we have with microtones, as I mentioned. This was something I tried to venture the use of the microtones even with the orchestra, but it was a very difficult job because it requires a great deal of rehearsals and getting used to the fingerings and the sound. And we didn't have this luxury. So I limited the orchestra to what should be, and I played all these, model, varieties of modes. The second thing, the use of ornamentation. As you noticed, when you play, there is a great deal of ornament or embellishment that gives the music depth and beauty. And this is part of the performance also, the art of ornamentation. The third thing, the use of rhythms that are not in fashion in orchestral work. Let us say the use of 6 and 7 and 9 and 10, 11. Those rhythms. To venture, into the unknown, you can play a great deal, symphonies and compositions based on 4/4. That's nice, but then it would be also as interesting to venture into rhythms that are not in fashion. So this was another aspect that I included in the concerto itself.
Wow. So has the concerto evolved now does it keep changing depending on the ensemble you're playing it with?
No, I mean the music is
Yes.
there. It's written,
Yes.
and but I change when I perform. Each time is different
Yes.
performance.
Okay. Well,
because I do, phrasings, with different embellishments, sometimes with the improvisational sections, and so it changes. Yes.
well, a reminder to everyone that Simone Shaheen will be playing his concerto in C minor for oud with the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia Sunday, May 19th. That's this coming Sunday at 2:30 p.m. and Monday, May 20th at 7:30 p.m. at the Kimmel Center. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your music with us today. What's the last piece you'll play for us?
We still have time. Okay. How about a light piece, like maybe Lebanese folk tune,
Okay.
right?
Thank you so much, Simone Shaheen. Live, you've been listening to WRTI, live from the WRTI Performance Studio. Simone Shaheen, thank you so much for visiting us, and good luck with your concerts with the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia this weekend.
Thank you so much.
Back to you, Deb.